Hey, y'all, welcome back to the podcast solo episode today. If you're watching this on YouTube, I have the cutest shirt ever on today. One of my clients made it for me. It is a handmade Decide It's Your Turn sweatshirt. First of all, I'm so excited to be wearing it because unfortunately, spring is psycho here in Arkansas and it's not that warm today. So I have a comfy sweatshirt on. I'm recording this podcast and I'm really actually looking forward to recording this podcast today. It's something different than I have ever done before in two ways. So, I want to start this podcast with something new that we're doing. If you have not heard it, but we have a new feature where you can leave me a voice note and I'm going to listen to it and I'm going to record my answer here on the podcast. So, not sure exactly if this will change on how we're going to do it, but I would love for you to send me a voice note. Our very first time that we played this, we got our very first one. So now on each episode, I am going to answer a voice note. But if you want to send me a voicemail, ask me a question, comment, concern, anything that you want to talk about specifically, and you'd rather send a voice note than sending a text message, you can send me a voice message at 501-402-0085. The question that I was asked on the voice note, and by the way, these are all super confidential. Even if we play your little voice note, we'll never know who it is unless you tell me your name. I'm 90% sure I know that the person who left me this voice note. So to you, thank you so much. And I hope you are listening to this episode to where I get to answer this question for you, but hopefully it will actually be beneficial to so many people.
Hello, Christina. I'm dropping in with a voice note for a question for the podcast. This is actually more of a personal one. And I'm asking because you are one of my favorite mentors, and I look up to immensely, somebody that I draw such inspiration from. And this is one of my favorite questions to ask my mentor because I think it's so interesting when I look at that. But the question is, who is somebody that you look up to, somebody that you have considered a mentor, whether you hired them directly or not, somebody that you really have modeled your practice or business after? And the reason I love asking a question is because oftentimes when I find the answer of my mentors and I go check out their mentors, I'm like, damn, the girl that I follow, the girl I like, does it better. And it's always such an inspiration. Not that it's a competition, but it's just such an inspiration to really like lean into your unique voice and perspective. So I would love to know your
Unfortunately, I don't feel like I have a very good answer to this, or maybe it is a good answer, but it is just, you know me, I am as truthful as I can possibly be, sometimes to a fault. Um, I don't know if this is the right answer per se, because I think this person was very much looking for an actual person. And I actually don't feel like I have an actual person. So in my business, I have hired numerous people over the years. Some of them are coaches, some of them are mentors, masterminds. I have worked with people such as Chris and Lori Harder, Lewis Howes, Lacey Sites. I have hired individual people. I hired a guy a long time named Michael. I have hired a woman named Camille. I have hired numerous people for numerous different factors in my business. And I will say, I think that I have honestly taken so much from every person, but I have this whole theory in life that I take what I want and leave with what I don't. So if I feel like what is one person that I basically, you know, look at or model my business after, I think the answer is I don't. I think I have taken little bits and pieces from numerous people over the years, but there isn't one specific person that I would say like, "Yes, this is the person that I look up to, that I model myself after," because I don't think that that honestly would be who don't think I would be who I am if I, like, modeled myself after someone in particular. I just don't think that that's for myself personally, I don't think that that's the best thing to be. So, obviously, my social media handle is Be Christina because I'm very adamant that we all should be ourselves and we should all be the best version of ourselves. I think we can learn from so many people. Like I learned so many things from all of those people. I took bits and pieces from all of the people that I have invested into, learning from, but I don't model myself after anyone. I am my own individual person. And that would be my number one recommendation to anyone is learn, take bits and pieces, take what you want and leave what you don't. Some of the most successful people in the world, I would never take certain bits and pieces from them because that's not who I am. It's not what I believe. And I think that that would be my biggest piece of advice is to take bits and pieces from so many people, but you have to put your own spin on it. You have to be your own individual person. I've said it before on this podcast, like someone would hire me over Mel Robbins because I'm me, and someone would hire Mel Robbins over Oprah because Mel is Mel. Like I think it's very much you have to be your own authentic self. And I don't think that I would be as successful as I am in my own version of success if I wasn't myself, if I was trying to be someone else. So, I've worked with many people over the years and I have taken bits and pieces from people, but I don't think that I model myself after anyone. And I think that, I just do it in my own way. I've found out how to do it my own authentic way. So, that is the answer to that question. I've worked with some amazing people over the years. I've definitely taken bits and pieces. I don't regret anything. I've had two kind of coaching experiences that I would have said were honestly shit, but I don't regret either one of them because I truly do believe I learned a lot. And maybe that a lot was just learning what I would never do. And I think that sometimes we have to learn those lessons in order to know what we shouldn't do. So that's the answer to that question. I'm so grateful. Again, if you have a question, comment, concern, coaching, needing coaching, anything that you want to leave a voice note for, it's 501-402-0085. You guys, it's very confusing considering I have a voice note number or voice message text or a voice message number, and then I have my text message number, which is 501-222-3362. I've been saying that one a very long time, but this new voice note thing is relatively new. I don't know if you guys listen to the podcast Absolutely Not with Heather. I think it's Heather McMahon. My podcast assistant, who I love to death, she listens to that podcast, and this is what Heather does on her podcast. So she's like, we got to do this too. So that's the reason why we're doing this. See, I'm taking pieces that I like and leaving what I don't. So that is that. I hope to hear from you, and I'm excited to answer all of these voice messages, voicemails, I guess is what they're called, on the podcast over the next few months. So today's podcast, I said it was completely different than I have ever done before, and that is just absolutely the honest to God truth. I am pulling up, if you're over on YouTube, you're watching me pull something up. So I was thinking about what podcast I was going to do today. I was thinking about what I was going to talk about, and a common theme that has been coming up with my coaching clients over the last few months, but honestly, the last few years, and even just everyone in general, like whether they're a client or a friend or whatever, is the fact that a lot of people hold them back from deciding it's their turn or doing the thing that they want to do because they're so worried about what people are going to think. And, as a coach, I really dive in, especially with my clients, I really dive in to figure out like, okay, what is truly holding them back and what is their deep rooted fears? Because I obviously believe that mindset wise, if we can figure out like what is the thing under the thing, I know I say that a lot, but ultimately my job is to help a client figure out what the thing under the thing is so we can reprogram that story pattern and habit to get a different result. But oftentimes there is the common theme of people are so worried about what people think. And it doesn't matter if you're in the beginning stages, if you're very successful, if you're old or young, black or purple, it doesn't matter. Everyone has this fear about worrying about what people think. Some people, it like petrifies them and stops them in their tracks. Other people, it's just a thought, but they can keep going through it. But I was reading this, I saw this post online that a friend of mine reshared. And it's something that I believe wholeheartedly in. And so I really wanted to almost use today's podcast to share this post. The post was like reshared back from 2001. So it's at least over 4 years old. And It's quite sad, to be honest with you. What it is it's a woman who is 27 years old who was on her deathbed, and she wrote all of her life lessons, and it basically started with, caring what people think. And I read every word of it, and oftentimes I think that we don't, I don't know about you, but I sometimes just, like, scroll through posts when I'm reading them. But this one really caught my attention because I have said for a really long time, I don't know what it is about me, but I have an eerie sense that I understand how short life is. And I've said on this podcast before, like, I really only have one fear, and that's losing my husband or dying, not because I'm afraid to die, but because I'm afraid of missing out. um, I just feel like I love my life so much now. I've worked so hard over the last 17 years to get to a place that I truly do believe I have the greatest life ever. And I do believe for the first, 26, 27 years of my life, I I didn't waste it, but I wasted it in the perspective of I wasn't so grateful for everything that I had. And I think once I really learned how to think, that's when my life changed. Nothing really externally in my life has changed that dramatically, but what has changed is the way that I look at life. And so many people don't live their lives fully because they care so deeply about what other people think. And when I was reading this post about this woman leaving these life lessons as she like if you read the post and just send me a message, I'll happy to find it and share it with you. If it is something that you're interested in, you can send me a text 501-222-3362, and I'll find the post and I'll share it with you. But I am about to share basically all of her lessons that she left as she's about to die, and she's 27 years old. And I just think that these are very similar to my thoughts, and perhaps throughout as I'm reading this post, I will share with you my thoughts, my personal thoughts, but I very much agree so much with what this woman says, and I don't think I fully grasp this the way that this woman does, as I am not 27 years old on my deathbed. But I think that it's a perspective shift that we could all learn from as I read this post, and I just think it's so true. So many of the things that she's saying are so true, and perhaps you come back and listen to this podcast once a week to give you a perspective shift, because I think oftentimes we get caught in the weeds, or we really let things drag on that we shouldn't let drag on, and I am not immune to any of this. I'm actually a situation that's happening right now, but once I read this post, I thought, "You know what? There's no reason to continue to harp on something that I've been harping on, because really at the end of the day, does it really matter?" This was not written in this post. This is just a personal thought of mine that I have shared with clients over the years. And it's kind of like that 5% or 5-minute rule, which is this. It's like, do you really think that what is bothering you right now will bother you in the next 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 years, 5 months, whatever it is? And oftentimes, I think if we run our situation or the thing that we're so worried about through that filter of like, will I even care about this in 5 days? Will I care about this in 5 weeks? Will I care about this in 5 months or 5 years? And oftentimes, it's like 5% of the things that you run through that lens, you'll actually give a shit about. So perhaps you can even use that tool. I share that with clients all the time, the 5 rule. So will you care about this in 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years? And 90% of the time, or let's use 95% of the time, only 5% of the things that you run through that filter will you actually give a shit about. So it's a perspective shift for sure. And it can help you over, it can help you get out of the constant thinking about the thing that you're doing. And I'll be honest, I used this on myself this morning as something that I was thinking about. And I was like, you know what? In 5 weeks, I won't give two shits about the thing that I'm actually thinking about right now that's pissing me off so much in this moment. So hopefully that helped you. And now let's go on to this post. And she basically starts in the beginning of this post saying she's 27 years old. And for the last few months, she's been having time to ponder that her life is about to end. And in the middle of the night, she's writing down these thoughts. And there's, 20 or so of these thoughts. And her first one thing is, be grateful for your minor issues and get over it. It's okay to acknowledge that something is annoying, but try not to carry on about it and negatively affect other people's days. And I thought that that was so good because it's kind of just like what I said about the 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years situation. It's like most of the things that we're worried about, are minor issues in the grand scheme of life, and I think sometimes we just need a perspective shift. And we all know those moments where we get perhaps a phone call or we hear something that definitely shifts us back into reality, and I think oftentimes we need to think more about those things because most of the time, the things that we're stressed out about really aren't that big of a deal. The second thing she says is once you do that, you'll get out there and take a big breath of the fresh air in your lungs. You'll look at how blue the sky is and how green the trees are. It's beautiful. Think about how lucky you are to just be able to do that, just to breathe. And I've said for years on this podcast now that one of the greatest things that I do for myself is go for my daily walk. And every day on my daily walk, and I'm not perfect, but 90% of the time, let's say 95% of the time on my daily walk, I do remember to look up at the sky. I look at the trees. I try to notice things that I don't normally notice because it allows me to get out of my head. Walking truly, I think, has saved my life or saved at least my mental life over the last however many years. And it is true that once you realize that how grateful you are to be able to see the sky, to smell the fresh air, to walk on the streets, to breathe in that air, whether it be cold, hot, musty, whatever it is, you're just so grateful for that because there is some people that don't even have that. The third thing she says is you might not have got caught in bad traffic today or had a bad sleep because your beautiful babies kept you awake or your because your beautiful babies kept you awake or your hairdresser cut your hair too short. Your new fake nails might have got a chip or your boobs are too small or you have cellulite on your ass or your belly is wobbling. And it's true, like, all of those things bother us so much in the moment, but when we really go in the grand scheme of things, there was so many years for those who don't know on this podcast, I've mentioned it many times, but I suffered for years with an eating disorder. I just hated myself so much, and I used food or the lack of food or too much food or whatever to, punish myself in so many ways because I was mentally not in the best spot. I was hurting myself. I didn't have the capacity to understand that I was just using my external to really not even work on my internal. And once I started working on my internal, my external didn't matter as much. And my external actually, in my personal opinion, got better. I don't know if that's true or not, or whether you think I'm ugly or fat or all of the things. It really doesn't matter. I know what I believe now to be true. And I will say, like, letting that shit go, and that's what she said. She said, "Let all that shit go. I swear to you, you will not be thinking of those things when it's your time to go. They're so insignificant. I'm watching my body waste away right in front of my eyes, and there's nothing I can do about it. But for now, I just wish I could have one more birthday, one more Christmas, one more hug with my partner, or one more laugh with my dog." And it's so true, like, we care so deeply that, someone cut us off in traffic, or we didn't make as much money this month, or we spent too much money, or our parents pissed us off, or someone said something unkind. And yet at the end of our life, we really won't give a shit about those things. So I think that's a really helpful perspective shift is, when those things are happening, how can you come back to this podcast and just remember that, you would give anything for that, you know, flabby stomach or that bad haircut or that chipped nail at some point in your life. Number 4, I hear people complaining about how terrible work is or how hard it is to exercise. Be grateful that you're physically able. Your work and your exercise might seem like trivial things until your body doesn't allow you to do either one of them. And wow, what a perspective shift that is. A lot, I can really resonate with the exercise and the work because a lot of my clients do struggle with taking care of their health. And a lot of my clients are wanting to, you know, switch positions or raise higher in their position or their job to be more like their business to be more successful. And I think that it is nice to have a perspective shift about like how lucky you are to even try, how lucky you are to even get to the gym, even though you hate being at the gym. I know for myself, when I lost one of my good friends 2 years ago, she was she was really like a celebrity trainer. She worked with a lot of professional basketball players and athletes, and she was always so positive, and she was always so grateful for her time in the gym. And even though over the last 7 or 8 years, I do believe that I'm, pretty grateful for the fact that I'm able to work out and treat my body well and be healthy. There is moments where I go to my trainer and I'm pissed that I'm there, and my husband and I are about to start 75 hard again, and I'm sure I'll be pissed on a couple of those days that I have to walk in the rain or, get out for my second exercise in the afternoon. But it also is a nice perspective shift to remember how lucky I am that I have a body that will allow me to work out twice a day. I'm so grateful for that, and I think it's, a wonderful perspective shift. She said, "Remember, there are more aspects to good health than the physical body. Just work hard on finding your mental and emotional and spiritual happiness too. That way you might realize how insignificant and unimportant having the stupidity of portrayed a perfect reality on social media really is. While on this topic, delete any account that pops up on your feed that gives you any sense of feeling shit about yourself, friends or not. Be ruthless about your own well being." And I think that that is so good. I have said for years that I would rather lock myself in a dark room than feel like shit or slam other people or gossip about people in the neighborhood or talk bad about my partner. I would rather be 100% without friends than do that, because my own well being and my own happiness is the most important thing to me, because no one lives in my brain more than me, and no one can hear what's happening in my head more than me. And so I protect my own well being more so than I protect anyone else's. And I think that that makes me good. I don't think it makes me selfish. I think it makes me probably more happy than most people are. And I'm very ruthless when it comes to that. And I totally agree with her. So that's a perspective shift for you. If there's anyone that you watch or you don't feel good about, I remember a woman told me one time that she unfollowed me for a while, and I kinda thought to myself, I'm like, "How unkind is that, that she told me she unfollowed me because of the way I looked?" And I thought that that was just, like, so unkind for her to say that. But I also actually respect the hell out of her that she knew perhaps looking at me made her feel a certain way. And she did say that she did some work on herself and she came back, and she's more than happy to follow me now. And I don't think it's my fault. I don't think I did anything wrong by being my own self. But I also know that if I was making that person uncomfortable, then yeah, she should unfollow me and I shouldn't feel bad about it. It has nothing to do with me. So perhaps you need to hear that as well. I'm sure a lot of people have opinions about how you are, or how you look. Maybe it's not how you look. Maybe it's your relationships. Maybe it's your money. Maybe it's your family. And just remember, it has nothing actually to do with you. And so just let that shit go, as this woman said. The last thing that she said, or the next thing that she said, pardon me, is be grateful for each day you don't have pain. And even the days when you are unwell with the flu, a sore back, or a sprained ankle, accept it accept it as shit, but be thankful it isn't life-threatening and it will go away. I agree with this one, and sometimes I don't agree with this one. I think sometimes it's okay to say that you're not okay. Sometimes it's okay to have a really bad day and feel bad and know that your pain is just as important and just as, you know, I had a woman on the podcast years ago who said the pain of a paper cut, and you can go back and hear her say this. She said, "The pain of a paper cut and the pain of losing your child is the same type of pain. You're both feeling pain. There's no kind of category for pain, and you're allowed to feel pain, and you're allowed to allow yourself to feel pain, that you shouldn't compare your pain to someone else's pain." And I remember her saying that because I remember being like, "Oh my gosh, I can't say that I've ever had a bad day when you've lost your child." And she said, "That's not true. You have. You've had a bad day. Your pain is your pain." And so I do agree with her in the fact that you can be grateful that your pain will probably go away, but also too, you're allowed to experience pain. I also think on the flip side of the coin too, it's like at what point in time, there's so much out there with anxiety and depression and all of the mental health. And at some point in time, you have to take personal responsibility for your life. You have to decide that you're going to do whatever it takes in order to get better. And that doesn't mean that I'm saying it's not real. It doesn't mean that I don't have sympathy. But at some point in time, you have to figure out how to help yourself. I think a good friend of ours, he has been clean he's been alcohol free for close to 20 years now. And then I have a family member who is still struggling. And I just truly do believe that people have to want it for themselves. They have to take personal responsibility for their life. There is a way out. And I think if you have the mindset and the mental capacity to know that you want something different, I truly do believe everything and anything is humanly possible if you want it. And if you set your goals to it and you set your mind to it, and if you always believe that there's a way to yes. I'm not telling you that it's easy. I'm not telling you that it might take you 2 minutes and it might take someone else 2 years, but I truly do believe from the bottom of my soul that there is a way to yes for everything. She said another thing that she said is give, give, give. It is true that you gain more happiness from doing things for others than doing them for yourself. I wish I did this more. Since I've been sick, I have met the most incredible, giving, kind people and been the receiver of the most thoughtful, loving words and support from family, friends, and strangers. More than ever, I wish I could give in return. I will never forget this and forever be grateful to all of these people. I truly do believe that it is so much easier to have success in this world when you're doing it for someone else, when you're being less selfish. And I know that at some point in time we all have to be selfish until we can get to a certain spot. But I do think that when you are doing something out of gratitude, out of gratefulness, out of being kind, out of serving others, you will 100% gain more back. I think this is kind of weird to say on this podcast because it seems a bit serious, but there's a quote by Grant Cardone that I've shared a lot and it rattles people in the wrong way. But he said it, not me, but I do believe it's true. He said a long time ago, and again, it's cringy, so don't hurt the messenger here, but he said, "Poor people are selfish." And when he said that, I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe he said that." But in the context that he said it, he said, when you have abundance, when you have more than enough, you're never worried about yourself because you know your basic needs are taken care of. He said, when you are poor and when you don't have enough, you're constantly thinking about yourself. And when you have more than enough, you can be a blessing to other people. And I'm not saying that people who have more than enough are better people at all. Some people are really shitty people. But there is a point where you know that you're fully taken care of and that you can be a blessing to someone else. It's so much easier to think of others when you're okay. And I've always remembered that because I do believe it's true. You can be such a blessing to other people. And I truly do believe that in my business too. I've used this a million times and I'll probably use a million more. I have said to people over the years, your money won't change my life, but it could possibly change yours. And I am at a position in life where I am financially fine and taken care of, and my basic needs are completely met. And so I truly do believe that there are certain people that come to me that I can change their lives. I can give them hope. I can give them tools and help them get to a place where they can be a blessing for others. The minute I start thinking about me, the minute I start thinking about my money or my business, it literally goes to shit. I promise you. But when I'm constantly thinking about like, how can I help another human being? How can I be a blessing? How can I be a service? It's like my business is easier. And I would just share that. And I think that she's true. She said her next thing she said is, "It's weird having money to spend it at the end when you're dying. It's not a time you go out and buy material things that you usually would, like buy a new dress. It makes you think how silly it is that we think it's worth spending so much money on new clothes and things in our lives." She said, "Buy your friend something kind next time. Buy a beautiful product for the girlfriend next to you. No one cares if you wear the same thing. It actually feels really good. Take them out to a meal, or better yet, cook them a meal. Shout out their coffee, give them a plant, send them a message, send them a candle, tell them that you love them and give it to them." She said, value others people's time. Don't keep them waiting because you are shit at being on time. Get ready earlier if you're one of those people and appreciate that your friends want to share their time with you, not sit by waiting, making them wait on you. You will gain respect too. I thought that was a good one. Have a tendency to be very much on time, so I don't really understand that one, but she said the next one she said is, this year our family agreed to do no presents, so despite looking at a relatively empty tree, it was so nice because people didn't have the pressure for shopping or the effort and for the pressure of shopping and the effort into writing a nice card or doing something for each other. Plus, imagine my family trying to buy me a present knowing that they would probably end up with it themselves. It might seem strange. It might seem lame, but those cards mean more to me than any impulse purchase could. Mind you, it was so much easier in our house to do that because we have no little kids. Anyway, the moral of the story is presents are not needed for a meaningful Christmas. Move on. Use your money on experiences, or at least don't miss out on experiences because you spent all of your money on material shit. So I would highly encourage every one of you to know what your love language is. And my love language 100% is quality time. And I actually don't give a shit about material things. I know that that sounds really weird to some people. And so some people do love gifts. Some people do love material things. Know what you actually love. But this one for me is so big because I 100% am such an experienced person. I am not a person to give material gifts. I don't really care about gifts. Like I literally just don't give a shit about gifts. But I love experiences. I love time. I love memories. I want something that is very much memory based. And maybe that does associate with the fact that I care about time so much more than anything else. And I'm afraid of wasting time. I'm afraid of not having enough time. So I would encourage you too to think about that. Like, is it more time that you want, more experiences that you want, or are you just trying to buy things in order to feel a certain way? Perhaps ask yourself that question. She said, put your effort into doing a day trip to the beach you keep putting off. Dip your feet in the water and dig your toes in the sand. Wet your face with the salt water. Get amongst nature. I truly do believe that if you feel depressed, if you feel anxious, if you feel lonely, if you feel scared, get outside and be kind to someone else. And I promise you, your day will get better. If you did that for 365 days, I guarantee you'd feel better. She said the next one, try just enjoying and being in the moment rather than capturing them through your screen. Life isn't meant to be lived through a screen, nor is it about getting the perfect photo. Enjoy the moment. Stop trying to capture it for everyone else. Those several hours that you're doing your hair and makeup each day, is it really necessary? I've never understood this. And, some people feel really great about themselves, and I don't actually agree with that one wholeheartedly because I do believe that some of us just feel more confident and better when we do put ourselves together. I am polar. I feel like I can look really good or I can look really horseshit. What are the others? But I do believe that like when you put yourself together and make yourself look proper, that you feel better about yourself and you like go out into the world more confident. I don't think that there's many women who would say if they've, you know, put on makeup, done their hair, dressed nice, that they don't feel more confident about themselves and what if they don't, try to take care of themselves. I think there's a big difference of doing it because you think you have to versus doing it because you want to feel better. That's why I'm a big proponent of what is confidence internally versus confidence externally. Like I believe I can be confident even if I'm, not dressed to the nines, which 99% of the time I'm not. I very much struggle with dressing up, but I feel like I can do a relatively decent job. But I do think that I'm not 100% agreeance with this one about, not taking care of yourself. I think taking care of yourself, you can feel really good about yourself and you can also go out into the world and feel really good about yourself. The next one she said was listen to music. Really listen to music. Music is therapy. She said, cuddle your dog. By far, that's one of the things that I'll miss the most. She said, talk to your friends. Put down their phone. Put down your phone. Are they really doing okay? She said, travel. Travel if it's your desire. If it's not, don't. Work to live, don't live to work. And I do think that we, especially in America, we have a harder time doing that. I think I'm pretty good about working my ass off, but then also like really, taking time off. And I think each one of us have to decide what that looks like for us each. Not everyone is the same, but really pay attention to why you're doing it. A lot of my clients hire me because they don't want to be so stressed out. They don't want to be so overwhelmed. They want to figure out how to think better and strategize better. And oftentimes, you have to have someone help you do that because doing the same thing over and over is going to get you the exact same result. And there isn't a finish line, whether it's $1 million, six figures, $8 million, whatever it is. What if you think you're going to get somewhere and have a different result, unless you do something different, you're sadly mistaken. She said the next thing, eat cake, zero guilt. And I do agree with that. You should be able to, enjoy the things in this life that you want to enjoy. Not every day, not all day, but I do think that you should be able to take care of yourself really well. My motto now that I've really been working on healing myself for the last 10, 15 years is I just really want to feel good. That is like truly my goal in life is to just feel good. I know eating a whole jar of ice cream is not going to make me feel good, but I know sometimes having a nice glass of wine is going to make me feel good. So I really judge everything that I do now based upon like, will this make me feel better? Does this make me, is this enjoyable to me? And I think that's one of the reasons why I don't overeat or undereat. I don't really deprive myself of anything. It's just because I really go by how do I want to feel? And I want to feel my best because I want to show up as my best because I don't want to take any day for granted. She said, say no to things you really don't want to do and say yes to all the things that you do want to do. Don't feel pressured to do what other people might think is a fulfilling life. You might want a mediocre life, and that's okay. And I totally do agree with that. I think there are some people that are very content with their lives and they don't need millions of dollars and doing all the things. And then I think that there's people that settle, and I think that there's people that, overdo it. I think you truly just have to figure out what works best for you. She said, tell your loved ones you love them every time you get the chance and love them with everything that you have. I think I do a pretty good job of that. I need to get better in some situations and forgive easier and not hold grudges as much. My own personal belief there, but I think I do a pretty good job to tell people that I love them. For years I've told my clients that I love them and my friends I love them because I truly do. Like I really do love people, and I think that is one of the characteristics that makes me great at my job. I really love what I get to do and I really love people. She said, also remember if something is making you miserable, you have the power to change it. In work, in love, whatever it may be, have the guts to change. You don't know how much time you've got on earth, so don't waste it being miserable. I know that it is said all the time, but it couldn't be more true. I have been saying this for years. You have the power to decide it's your turn. You have the power to decide. You have the power to change your life. You have the power. Personal responsibility is one of the greatest things that you can ever do. If it's not working, it's your fault. If it's working, it's your fault. And I know that that sounds harsh, but it's true. And I think that it's so empowering when you realize that. She said, one last thing. If you do a good deed for humanity and start regularly donating blood, you will feel good with yourself. As at an added bonus, you will be saving lives. And so obviously she has a blood disease and that's how she's going to die. And so that is very important to her. And I think that, you know, one of the things that she said at the end of the post, she said, anyway, this is just one young gal's life advice. Take it or leave it. I don't mind. And I think that that goes back to what I say oftentimes. I learned this for a mentor of mine, a guy on the golf course. And he said, he always told me, I learned this from him way back in the day when I was playing golf. He said, Be a sponge. Take what you like and leave what you don't. Not everything that works for him or works for even the most successful people in the world will work for you. And I think it's really important for all of us to realize that you have a choice. And I kind of think that's how I started this podcast when I was talking about my mentors, when that voice note was left where she said, who are my mentors? And I've taken a lot from a lot of amazing people, mentors that I paid, people that I've had the pleasure of getting to know in my golf career, people that I've been around through my husband's business, through friendships, all of the things. And not every single person I want to take everything that I've learned from every single person, but there's always been bits and pieces that I've been able to take. So perhaps on today's podcast, you've been able to hear something that this young gal left before she passed away, this advice that she had, that she has a different perspective. Perhaps you are in a situation similar. Hopefully not. Hopefully none of us are listening to this right now or in this similar position. But I guarantee you, if you were told that you were going to have your last few days on earth, things would be very different. And I know for a fact, I know I'd probably do a few things different and hopefully, just a perspective shift in life. Um, listening to this and reminding myself of this, and perhaps you could re-listen to this podcast. Maybe you put it in your saved. I don't know if you guys know this, but you can save a podcast and re-listen to it. So maybe you want to re-listen to it, every few weeks when you're having a bad day. Maybe come back and save this one and listen to it, or copy the link and put it in your notes and you can listen to it again and again. Or if you want the post, send me a text 501-222-3362. I'm happy to share the post with you as well. I know that this was a little bit different than what I've ever shared on this podcast before, but I thought it would be a great podcast to share with you because I know myself reading this was really helpful. And I think it's just always a nice reminder of, things that we perhaps know, but perhaps should hear again. So let me know if you ever want me to record something else like this. I've had a few, posts over the years or life lessons that I have learned from other people that I could definitely share on the podcast. But let me know if you guys like it. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for always sharing this podcast with someone who you think will need it. And I'll see you next week.